Well, it's Cup quarter-final evening up at St James's Park in Newcastle as the Foxes travel there, hoping to make it to the semi-finals of the League Cup, just as they did back in 2020, of course. With all our team news tonight to find out the 11 who maybe will be sending Leicester to the semi-finals is our commentator, James Fielden.
Let's see. Good evening, Dan. Good evening, everyone. A very mild evening here in the northeast. The stadium filling up around us here. The lights are on. It promises to be quite the evening. This is the Leicester team taking to the field very shortly. It's a side much changed, of course, from the Gillingham game at the weekend. Only 3 remain in the form of Albrighton, Tielemans and Jose Perez. 2 changes to the Fulham team that played in the Premier League. Boum Soumaré and Jamie Vardy making way. Mark Albrighton and Patson Daka coming in to lead the line up front. It's goalkeeper tonight, Danny Ward. He returns, having not been involved with the weekend. Castagna, Amati, Fass and Thomas in front of him. And Didi and Tielemans, the 2 in midfield, with Jose Perez just ahead. Albrighton skippering the side on the right-hand side. Harvey Barnes off the left and Patson Daka through the middle. Newcastle United have named an unchanged side from their last Premier League game. 8 changes from their cup game. We'll go with the Premier League side from last time out for them. Pope the goalkeeper, Trippier the captain at right back, Cher, Botman and Byrne across the back line, Longstaff, Bruno Guimaraes and Willock in midfield, Almiron, who was so good in that game at King Power Stadium when they met at the back end of last year, Wilson the central striker and Joe Ellington off the left hand side for Newcastle United. But for Leicester, much change from the cup game at the weekend, but from that last league game, Albrighton and Daka come into the 11.
Thank you very much, James. Yes, Cup quarter-final evening. It's an exciting one. Matt Elliott and Ewan Roberts will be with us for the next, 50 minutes as we build up to kick-off, really, which is in an hour, of course. Jerry Taggart is live at St James's Park as well. He'll be on co-commentary duty for us tonight. Firstly, good evening to the both of you, starting with you, Matt, obviously in the studio. We were here last night, weren't we? Yep. Discussing the win against Gillingham. We'll do that tonight, of course. We're also preparing for this game, and it's quite a big one, really, isn't it?
Evening, Batesy. Yeah, massive, isn't it? Quarter-finals don't come around too often, although Leicester have had their fair share over recent seasons, and it's a massive game, isn't it? You can tell that by the lineups as well. Pretty much as there or thereabouts as strong as Leicester could be, outside of injuries, and certainly as strong as Newcastle could possibly be, aren't they, at this moment in time? That's pretty much the team that came down here to the King Power, isn't it? Aside from Chris Wood, I think, from memory. Wilson coming in front of Chris Wood, so that shows you what Leicester are up against, but all to play for.
Good evening, of course, to you, Ewan Roberts. You were with us in person yesterday evening. You're back on Zoom tonight. Are you looking forward to this one?
I am. I mean, there's something special about St James's Park under the floodlights. It won't be a spare seat in that stadium tonight, I'm sure. Leicester will be well backed, high in the heavens up there, because the away fans, I think as you come out of the tunnel to the goal to your left, the away fans are right in the top tier of that stadium. And it promises to be a fantastic game. 2 very good sides. Obviously, Newcastle are the favourites, having a great season. Had a really good last year, started this year superbly, so it's gonna be a tough test, Dan. But when you get to the latter stages of any competition, there's no gimmies. To be fair, I think you've got to be very, very fortunate to get an easy tie in a quarter-final or a semi-final.
Have you had a change of scenery as well there, you, and a change of room to where you normally do your Zoom calls from? No,
mate, still in the kitchen. I've just changed seats. That's what it is, Dan.
Oh, just changing it up a little bit, you, and keeping us all on our toes.
Mix it up a little bit.
Right, let's take a look at what we're going to be talking about then this evening on Matchday Live as we build up to kick-off. We just mentioned there yesterday, of course, during extra time, we were talking about that Gillingham win in the FA Cup. Different competition, of course. Kelechi Iheanacho getting the winner. We'll talk through that goal and what that win means, of course. We'll look back at some great goals scored against the Magpies, including that cracker from James Maddison. And we'll hear from Brendan Rodgers, of course, who's been looking ahead to this game with Newcastle and the potential of a cup semi-final. And that's probably the message, Matt, isn't it, really, from Brendan Rodgers to the players? Play well tonight, win the tie, you're in a semi-final, a 2-legged semi-final. Anything can happen at that stage.
Listen, I don't think it needs much of a team talk from Brendan, does it? Certainly shouldn't do, especially on the back of the the result, and probably even more importantly, the performance against Newcastle. Obviously, not so long ago, it was poor from Leicester's point of view. They can't afford a repeat of that. They're up against pretty much the same opposition. Go and make a better fist of it this time as well. That's the challenge as well, isn't it? Your own sort of personal pride as a professional footballer and as a team, and alongside that, obviously, the quarter-final of the Cup. If you're not inspired and motivated by that, you've got problems, haven't you? So, as Ewan says, great setting, isn't it? All to play for. Lots of ingredients there. You get the feeling both sides very capable. On the day, they're going to be up for it, and you're expecting, nice. Not necessarily end to end, but an exciting game.
Hopefully that's what we'll see, you. And it wasn't quite end to end on Boxing Day when Leicester played Newcastle, of course, here at King Power Stadium. Newcastle were the better side on the day, so they'll be hoping for a much better performance this evening.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, Dan, that Leicester have been far better away from the King Power. Just before the World Cup break. Very unlucky at Anfield the other week. The 2 own goals, you can't sort of legislate for that, but I thought it was a far better performance than the one at the King Power against Newcastle. Just didn't get started, and it doesn't matter what level of football you play at. You can't start the way Leicester did. You can't give teams a 2-goal start in the opening 10 minutes of the game, especially against a stubborn, well-drilled, defensively solid team as Newcastle are. You give yourself a mountain to climb, and it's not often when you play the side and you've got well and truly thumped by them that you get a chance to sort of get one over on them in a couple of weeks' time, and that's what Leicester have got. They've got a chance to right the wrongs of that game at the King Power, the first Premier League game after the World Cup break, and let's hope that the lads can get to yet another League Cup semi-final.
Does that work quite well for them, Ewan? Is that the way that they'll be looking at it, that it's a chance for revenge almost from what happened a few weeks ago, or will Newcastle look at it and think, we were so good against them, we can repeat that process tonight? But I guess then complacency may come into it for them.
Yeah, I don't think Newcastle will look at it like that, Dan. Eddie Howe, he's an experienced manager. He'll pay full respect to Brendan Rodgers and the football club, and they will know they've got Leicester on an off day. You get the feeling quarter-final of a League Cup, it will be different tonight. The prize is a big one. You win tonight, you're 2 games away from yet another Wembley appearance. The club have had a lot of success in this competition. Won it 3 times. Got to a semi-final 2 years ago. Got to a quarter-final last year. Very unlucky to lose in the manner that they did up at Anfield, having been 3-1 up at one stage with Minamino scoring in the 93rd minute to take it into extra time and then losing out on penalties. And the majority of the team, the squad, they were involved in that game, and that disappointment of losing at Anfield, that will still hurt. But yeah, I think they'll be looking forward to pitting their wits against this good Newcastle side tonight.
Yep, and they've got history of beating Newcastle in this competition at St James's Park as well. It was just a few years ago they did go there and win on penalties. Right, let's rewind a couple of days and change cup competitions and take a look back at the best bits and the highlights from that game at Priestfield Stadium as the Foxes made it through to the 4th round of the FA Cup.
Leicester City hoping to make sure they're in the headlines for the right reasons as they take on Gillingham, who are bottom of the EFL. A rare sellout crowd for the Foxes' first trip here in over 18 years as the 2021 winners look to embark on another run. There's going to be this reflection here for Pele and Gianluca Vialli, who very sadly passed away yesterday. Pulling towards Vardy, near post Vardy! Turner got his body in the way. And Gillingham survive a scare. There's a great ball into the path there of Jamie Vardy. He had to try and turn and hit it all in one motion as it came at him from the right-hand side, but the goalkeeper did enough. Then runs up to the line now, launches it into the box. He goes a long, long way, hooked across goal, and grabbed just about by Everson. A few Glances around the press box there because that ball looked as though it was curling into the top corner. Oh, it comes back here, a chance for Gillingham. It was struck there by Jeffries. Still maybe there, lashed towards goal, but wide by Hakeem Delicate. Scored in the last round against Dagenham and Redbridge here, the winning goal to take them through. Tielemans crosses from the right in towards Vardy. It skips behind him. It comes all the way through. Vardy's in there. Iheanacho. Who else? Mr. FA Cup. Kelechi Iheanacho, and Leicester lead by a goal to nil. That is time, and Leicester City are safely through to round 4 of the FA Cup. Boy was it hard, boy was it tough, boy was it cold, wet and windy throughout as well. But a goal from Kelechi Iheanacho, a man who is the FA Cup's top scorer over the last several years. What a run in this competition he's had.
You were there, Matt, of course, at Priestfield Stadium at Gillingham, which I'm sure you were buzzing to be there, and that cold Saturday afternoon. Job done, wasn't it, really? Simple as that for Brendan Rodgers and his side.
Yeah, exactly. Some people look at it and say, oh, 1 goal winning margin against the bottom of the league, literally. You should deal with it a little bit more comfortably and efficiently than that. But I don't think there can be too much criticism levelled at a team going through to the next round. They certainly weren't fortunate. Could have been more. A couple of half scares, in the second half. But generally, I think Brendan Rodgers and the supporters as well that made the effort to go down there. Fair play to them, by the way.
Especially in that away end.
Yeah, exactly. The early kick-off, etc. The big old effort, big mission getting down there in the conditions. But the supporters will listen. They'll be not grateful. They'll be happy. The way the team applied themselves. It wasn't pretty, it was never going to be. The pitch wasn't horrendous, but it's not Premier League standard, but the blustery, swirling conditions, made it very difficult for any team to go there and play any sort of cohesive football of any level. And Leicester, got stuck in. They were prepared for what was coming their way and battled away, and the quality showed in the end. It was relatively comfortable as a 1-0 can be, put it that way. And if they're similarly prepared and up for the challenge tonight, it'll be interesting, because that's part of their test for this evening, isn't it? Is making a stern difference to how they competed last time.
Yeah, just looking back at the highlights, and there weren't too many chances really for either side in the game. So the one really good one that fell thankfully to Kelechi Iheanacho, who put it away brilliantly.
I mean, it was a fantastic strike. He didn't really have time to think about what he was going to do. It was it fell to his trusted left foot, and it was a fantastic finish. Put it in the top corner. No one's keeping that out. And Matt's strike, we spoke about it last night, Dan. There was a reason why the game was chosen by the BBC to be live on TV, because it was a possible banana skin. It's a fantastic finish. You can easily snatch at those and put it over the bar and put it over the stand. But he kept his composure. I say anything on that left foot, it just bounces up nicely for him. And it is a fantastic goal by Kelechi Iheanacho. But it was, it was a possible banana skin. Conditions weren't great. The pitch wasn't brilliant. Early kick-off as well, 12:30 kick-off. That's a hard one to get used to. So it was a very, very professional performance from the lads, and the main thing is you make sure you're in the draw for the 4th round, and that's exactly what the lads did. Kept a clean sheet, which I'm sure Brendan Rodgers will be absolutely delighted with. He was able to rest the majority of the lads who were playing tonight, so job done. See you at Walsall.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't tap it in you, did he? But Tony Cottee was saying last night on Extra Time that he did really well to place it. A lot of players in that position would try and blast the ball into the back of the net. He picks the top corner out, really.
Yeah, and he's got a lovely left foot. He said he showed a great deal of composure. He didn't panic. He had a split second to sort of assess what he had on and have a look up. I think the keeper was out of the equation, but there was 3 or 4 blue shirts in front of him. And maybe there was a bit of a gap in where he put it, but you've still got to do it. You've still got to put your foot through it with composure, and to put it in the top corner like he did. I mean, it was a fantastic strike. And I mean, the one thing that does surprise me with the team that the starting 11 tonight, that Kelechi Iheanacho isn't in the starting lineup.
Well, let's hear from the man himself then, Kelechi Iheanacho, speaking after the game at Gillingham, looking ahead to this one with Newcastle this evening.
Mr. FA Cup, Kelechi Iheanacho, congratulations. It's you again in this competition.
Yeah, it's a lovely competition. I love the competition, and hopefully it will for us again. And it's a long way to go, but hopefully this is a stepping stone. It's a good win. Hopefully we'll keep going and we get more wins, and hopefully we'll get there.
I don't know if you know the statistic that since you played your first game in this competition, no player in the whole country has scored more goals in it than you. I think that's either 16 or 17 now. It just seems to happen.
I don't really know. I'm not really counting all that, so I'm focused on the game. So you lot should help me count that, so I can keep that record for me, so I'll keep scoring.
Do you have much of FA Cup memorabilia and memories at home from all of these matches? Shirts or match balls?
Yeah, I think I have one. When we played with teams that scored 2 goals when the VAR came in the country. So the game against, I forget the team, but that was, I think I have it at home. So.
And what did you make of the team overall today? It was a hard game to play in, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were a top side. In the first half, they were really difficult to break down. So trying to find the space, but it was difficult. But second half, the space came out, and we find the space and we get a goal and keep it like that till the game finish. So on to the next round.
What did Brendan say to you at half time? Because I imagine you just had to kind of keep going, waiting for that moment, and then it came for you.
Yeah, he said we should keep playing and keep doing what we did and be patient and move the ball from side to side quickly, and that's what we did. And he said we should take more risk at the final third, so we did that, and space came out.
And I don't know if there was an English team that maybe you supported as a child from Nigeria or anything like that. Is there a team you would like to play the most in the next round?
Yeah, obviously, watching Nigeria, watching Arsenal, and and other teams as well. But Nigerians, they love Arsenal as well a lot. So obviously, hopefully, if we don't play them, then hopefully we'll meet in the final spot. Hopefully we'll get through.
Okay. Newcastle coming up on Tuesday. How much of the group looking forward to that one? A lot further down the line in that competition than you are in the FA Cup, and a chance to play in a semi-final again.
Yeah, it's a great competition as well, the Cup, and playing them now, obviously, it's sort of a revenge for us because they beat us in the Prem. So we're going there to fight and to make sure we get the win. But it will be a tough game, but hopefully we'll get through.
Newcastle are a very different team this season, aren't they, compared to previous years? They've signed 1 or 2 players, but as a group, they're very different to how they were maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah, they are very different now. Obviously, the manager is doing a great job on the players as well. But they are a very, very strong side now, so they're difficult to break down defensively. One of the best in the league. So hopefully we give them a game and we'll go through.
Hopefully that'll be the case this evening. Kelechi Iheanacho there at the end talking about Newcastle being a solid team, of course, which they are. They've conceded so few goals in the Premier League. They've only lost 1 in the league, and that was, I think, a 98th minute winner at Anfield. So they're clearly very, very strong. So it'll be difficult for Leicester to break them down this evening, particularly in front of their own fans. Yeah,
which means Leicester have got to be ultra solid themselves, haven't they? You can't afford to sort of concede any advantage to them, as they did here at the King Power. First 10 minutes, game was over, because very rarely are you going to claw back a 2-0 disadvantage against Newcastle, are you? And it's a
team in form, which obviously they have been as well.
Yeah, exactly. So let's be aware of that and not fall into traps as well. Talk about learning from games, and managers do and players do. We see here the ease with, I don't know what was going on there. I mean, there's about 7 things wrong there I can see in that goal with Almiron, good as it was from Newcastle's point of view. You just can't be switched off like that, because game's beyond your grasp already. Yeah, Leicester need to recognise as well how well Newcastle press. That's going to be done equally as well tonight at St James's Park with the backing of the home crowd. Perhaps go a little bit long, back to front with quality, play over the midfield rather than trying to be intricate through it and get caught out. Certainly in the early stages. I'm looking forward to seeing sort of the tactical aspect of things, how Leicester react. But on top of that, it's a quarter-final cup tie as well, so there'll be a little bit of blood and thunder. And, hopefully there will be. There'll be that passion from both sets of players, and there's a fair amount of quality out there. So it's got all the ingredients of a good mix, hasn't it? A good contest between two similar-ish quality teams, really, despite their league positions.
Yeah, when you come up against a team, Ewan, in as good a form as Newcastle are, albeit, okay, they lost at the weekend in the FA Cup, but do you do what Matt has been saying there? Maybe change tactics slightly, go a little bit long, try and quieten the crowd down, because clearly their confidence is as high as it possibly can be at the moment.
Yes, I think for the first 15, 20 minutes, that's not a bad shout. You've got to drop little seeds into the opposition defenders that everything isn't going to be in front of them. You've got Patson Daka up front. What's his strength? Running beyond the two central defenders, running into the channels, using his pace. Mike will tell you defenders hate having to turn and having to run towards their own goal. It's one thing they don't want to do. They want to be in their comfort zone. They want to be sort of playing with their back to their own goal, everything in front of them. So, well, why not mix up your tactics? We've got a good idea of the formation that the lads are going to be sent out in. But yeah, why not mix it up for the first 15, 20 minutes? But the most important thing is you keep that solid defensive shape, because as we've spoken about, Leicester can't start this game as they did at the King Power. Just going back to Kelechi Iheanacho, if I can, I've just had a quick look at his FA Cup record. It's absolutely mad. 11 goals in 16 appearances for Leicester. In his FA Cup career, 16 goals in 22 appearances. And to be fair to him, his League Cup one, or the EFL Cup, whatever they want to call it now. I'm a bit old school. I still call it the EFL. 7 goals in 17 games for Leicester in this competition. One thing Kelechi knows what to do is put the ball in the back of the net, and at the minute, that is a bit of a problem for the football club.
Speaking of putting the ball into the back of the net against Newcastle, let's take a look back at some classic goals scored against the Magpies. Let you in on a little secret, there isn't a Matt Elliott goal in there.
Looks a very sparse 10 yards away. It's rolled short to Zagarakis. Well, they've got one back. A free kick of real quality from Theo Zagarakis.
The option, and it's a wonderful strike from Gunnlaugsson. Held with that left foot, hit with power and swerve. It didn't look as though Shea Given had a chance with that.
It's Vardy. As tight as this, he's often the one to separate them. This is Jamie Vardy! History maker! 10 out of 10. And the fairy tale goes on. Jamie Vardy is living the dream.
Reach. Morgan. Tim by Albrighton. Vardy going for it. Okazaki! Well, particular thrill for him. His first home goal. And it's come at an important time.
Now Mahrez onto his left foot. He'll have a go from range. Oh, Riyad Mahrez with a blockbuster. What a strike from the Algerian. Gets Leicester City back on level terms here at St James's Park. It's a wonderful effort. And Mahrez continues his rich vein of form.
It's not like he's in a particularly good position. Newcastle have given it away again. And here's Maddison, left-footed on the edge of the box. It's an absolute screamer. Oh my word. James Maddison sets off in 2020, just as he was playing in 2019.
Matt, you were having a little moan, weren't you, behind the scenes that your goal against Newcastle wasn't in. But then you look at the standard of some of those goals and you realise just a header at the back post probably wasn't going to make the grade.
It was as athletic as Okazaki's overhead kick there, mate. But, well, you know what I'm going to say. It's not the first time, is it, I've been omitted. When was it? A couple of weeks ago or so. But never mind. You know, I can remember it, even if no one else wants to see it. But yeah, some great goals, weren't there? Great goals. And Larson, I forgot about the quality of that strike. Zagarakis should have got saved, really, shouldn't it? But yeah, Maddison and Mahrez, Leicester have done all right against Newcastle over recent times, haven't they? So that was, you know, reason for encouragement, isn't it? You know, that alone. I know some of them a few years ago, whatever, but yeah, because St James Park is a difficult place to go. Leicester have had some joy. Yeah,
they've got a decent record there, and I'm sure you've got the stats in front of you, haven't you, of Leicester's form at St James's Park. But other than last season where Newcastle scored, I think it was back again really, really late, maybe the 95th minute or something like that. Their record there is good in certainly in recent seasons.
It's a stadium that the club's enjoyed a lot of joy. I mean, they've only sort of faced Newcastle once in this competition, and that was in 2019 down up at St James's Park, 1-1 draw. Maddison scored yet again up there. Leicester went through on penalties. Yeah, but in recent years, in the last 7 games up at St James's Park, Leicester have won 6 of those games. So it's somewhere that they seem to enjoy going, that they enjoy playing there in the atmosphere that the Geordies sort of produce. So hopefully they can make it 7 wins out of 8 at come 10 o'clock tonight, Dan.
Hopefully they can. As soon as you knew Ewan was on, you knew you didn't have to do any research this evening.
Some record that though, isn't it?
Yeah, 6 out of the last 7 away from home.
I bet it's got. You don't get much better than that, do you? It's got to be the best against any team in terms of away results, hasn't it? So, yeah, again, like I say, reason for encouragement. If you want to have a look at positives, they're there. But Leicester need some big performances tonight because they've got matched Newcastle physically, in the work rate, etc. Yeah, can't be second best in that department, but need some big individual performances up top, especially. Like we mentioned, Iheanacho not playing. A lot of people thought maybe he would be in the mix, but
Perez against his old club.
Yeah. Who's that? There's an argument sort of for and against Perez stroke Iheanacho. Iheanacho can play the number 10 role as well, but Brendan's gone for that. The system sometimes counts against Iheanacho, but if you play 2 up front, then there might not be a place for Barnes, etc. So Barnes is a key player, but need a big performance from him because he's been a little bit under par of late. So it's a night to stand up and be counted for sure.
Right, let's hear from a man then that follows Newcastle week in, week out. Lee Ryder from the Evening Chronicle has been previewing this game for us.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about now. It's going to be season defining for Newcastle. This is probably their only chance to win a trophy now. You know, they are still doing well in the league, but realistically, at the start of the season, no one was talking about winning the Premier League title. So this is the competition they can win. And, you know, going out the FA Cup will simply have fueled their sort of ambition to even more after what was a bad loss at the weekend. Well, I think it gives Leicester a slight advantage because Leicester don't underestimate Newcastle because they know exactly what they can do and how they're going to do it. Newcastle will revert to a full-strength team in this game. There's no doubt about that. Eddie Howe's actually said that on the record. So it's going to be a similar matchup to Boxing Day from our end. So it's going to be tough, but I think Leicester will be trying to prove a point. And obviously, these two teams have met in this competition at St James's Park before, and went Leicester's way that night. So there's a lot to play for here, and it really makes for an intriguing game.
Thanks to Lee Ryder there from the Evening Chronicle. He brought up the point that we were talking about earlier, Ewan, didn't he, about that game, of course, on Boxing Day and what it means for both teams. And he said it probably works in Leicester's favour, actually, that one.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it gives you more incentive to go out and perform far better than they did back on Boxing Day. And, you know, a lot's been made about the takeover at St James's Park and the money that Eddie Howe has got to spend now. I mean, he's spent a bit. He hasn't gone daft. He hasn't gone overboard. They've spent quite a bit. And when you do that, it does bring its own pressure. You know, you're talking about, here's a massive club, Newcastle. They've won the FA Cup 7 times. Last time they won the league was back in 1927. It's a long, long time ago. They've never won this competition. They've got to the final once back in '76 when they were beaten by Manchester City. And Newcastle fans are desperate for success. They're having a great time in the Premier League, but they want trophies. You know, and if you ask Newcastle, I think they'll be envious of what Leicester have achieved in recent years. You know, back in MATCHDAY when they won the League Cup twice, the Premier League a few years ago, won the FA Cup a couple of years ago. Leicester have enjoyed lifting silverware. It's become a bit of a habit, a good habit for Leicester. Newcastle fans have never ever seen, or majority of Newcastle fans have never ever seen their team lift a trophy. And as I say, they will be desperate. And that brings its own pressure. And especially when you're playing at home, then in front of your own fans who have got that desperation to get to a semi-final, to get to a final at Wembley. It's a long time since they played a final at Wembley, back in the early 2000s, I think it was. So, you know, that can go against you at times.
It's probably the new owners, when they came in, will have looked at it and thought, win a trophy relatively early. This has probably come even earlier than maybe they were expecting, if they do go on quite far in this competition.
Yeah, it makes you smile sometimes, the way people sort of almost flippantly say, win the trophy, any trophy. There's only 3 to win, and certainly domestically, and you're thinking, it's not that easy. One of them's out the equation for most. So
the other's out the equation because they lost at the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. But they played, a weakened team, didn't they? Certainly, I wouldn't say it was a poor team, but they're strong enough in its own right. But this is the main artillery this evening that Leicester are facing. So, it doesn't suggest that they're absolutely desperate to get a trophy, because they would have, if they wanted to target that, in the FA. In the FA Cup, they might have played a stronger team, whatever. But I suppose this is their best chance, the way it's evolved, hasn't it? They haven't set the world alight by the way they've qualified up to this stage in the Carabao Cup. It's been a penalty shootout here and a narrow victory there, and so I don't think it's a major priority for them. Of course, the fans would love to, etc., and it helps that winning habit and all that business, but it's more about the general development, isn't it? For them to take a while for them to establish themselves as a top 4/6 side, but they've got that capability, haven't they? Because they've got the resources, and the job that Eddie Howe's done is amazing, and the players, I might add. But no, I wouldn't see them any pressure like that. It's just the natural sort of excitement and motivation that playing in a quarter-final brings, and that they're picking up on the vibe, aren't they? The players, the supporters, and the management, everyone, the whole people in the town, they're all in it together. You know what it's like up in Newcastle. So it's going to be difficult to stop. That's got to be right at it.
Yeah, not many teams, Ewan, have been able to stop them this season. Even when you look at the last 5 results, you take away, obviously, what happened at the weekend when they did play a changed team. They get results, don't they? Okay, they'll have been very disappointed on the game after against Leeds at home, but going to Arsenal, getting a point is very, very good for Eddie Howe and his side.
It is. I mean, they've lost 2 of their 22 games in all competitions. Obviously, Liverpool away and the FA Cup against Sheffield Wednesday. At home, they've been impossible to beat down. They haven't lost at St James's Park in 11 games. They've won 7 of those games. If you look at their Premier League home record, they've kept 8 clean sheets in those 11 games. But as you say, Bournemouth have been up there and drawn. Leeds have been up there recently and come away with a clean sheet and a good point. Crystal Palace went up there and got a point. So it's not beyond Leicester City to go up there. And I'm not saying get a draw because that's an impossibility tonight. You know, there has to be a winner, whether it goes to extra time and penalties. I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, there's no reason why Leicester City, if they perform like they can do, if they can perform like they did when they went up to Anfield the other week, if they can perform like that, then they've got a chance of making the semi-final. Dan, you know, Leicester have got some real quality in their squad. You know, the bench will have a big say, and I think in the outcome tonight. If you look at that Leicester bench, they've got plenty of quality to come off that if needed, and I'm sure it will be needed.
Yep, speaking of the Leicester bench from the press box, Jerry Taggart, that is only about 10 feet away, isn't it? It's quite the view there up at St James's Park. Good evening to you firstly. How is it up there?
Good evening, Dan. Good evening, lads. Yeah, it's been good so far. I've actually got a stat pack down, which you'll be really, really impressed with. It's got all the heads against the 2 clubs, players info and all the games played, stats and all the rest of it. So a little collector's item that I think I'll bring back and give to you, Dan.
Well, thank you very much, Jerry. I'd appreciate that. Have you had any chocolate brownies up at St James's Park? You've got a bit of a history there, haven't you, with those?
No, not as yet. I think that's at half time, Dan.
Okay. We'll make sure it doesn't get stolen again.
Don't you worry.
What are you expecting from Newcastle tonight and from the crowd? Okay, we're still, just over 20 minutes away from kickoff. So is it filling? Is there excitement levels? What are they like up there now?
Yeah, it's pretty not subdued. That's probably more to do with the music that's playing at the minute. But yeah, it's about, I don't know, around about half full at the minute. It's just interesting listening to that Newcastle reporter, you know, and obviously Eddie Howe picking a full-strength team. He'll want to make sure, you know, obviously that Newcastle no repeat performance or result in the FA Cup at the weekend against Sheffield Wednesday. And for Leicester, for me, they just have to be able to start the game well. You know, that's been an issue for Leicester in recent times, in recent games, especially against Newcastle. They can't afford to start the game sloppy.
We've just seen the Leicester defenders doing a few warm-ups there. Daniel Amati almost leading the defenders in that, Jerry. If you can see them from where you are.
I can. Of course I can see. I can see everything from where I'm sat down. Yeah, they're just going through a little back 4 routine with Sads, the first team coach. And it supposedly gets you into the groove, this warm-up, but as we've seen in recent league games especially, that hasn't been the case. So very, very important that these 4 especially just going through their paces in the warm-up, you know, start brightly and on the front foot.
Thank you very much, Jerry. We'll hear from you during co-commentary, of course, up at St James's Park. Let's have a quick recap then of tonight's team news. If you're just joining us here on Matchday Live on LCFC TV, we've been speaking about the Leicester back 4 there. That's Luke Thomas, Wout Fast, Daniel Amati and Timothy Castagna in front, of course, of number 1, Danny Ward. Wilfred Ndidi and Yuri Tielemans, we think, will be in the holding central midfield roles with Barnes, Perez and Albrighton. In behind Patson Daka, who gets the nod, his first start since his injury. From a Newcastle point of view, the hosts line up like this, with Nick Pope in goal, Dan Burns, Sven Botman, Fabian Schär and Kieran Trippier. That back 5 has been so solid all season. Bruno, Willock and Longstaff as the midfield 3, with Joelinton, Wilson and Almiron in behind, of course, Callum Wilson there. So huge game, of course, for Leicester City this evening. That's something that was brought up in Brendan Rodgers' press conference this week. He was asked if this is Leicester's biggest game of the season so far.
It's a fantastic game, I think. Listen, we've got experience now in cup competitions, and we always treat them seriously. And this here is an absolutely brilliant game for us. You know, we only played Newcastle a few weeks ago. Didn't show our true selves in the first 10 minutes. We shot ourselves in the foot. So St James's Park's an amazing place to go and play. The atmosphere will be great, and but that's what you want as a player and a manager, to be able to go into games like this here. And it's also, if you're going to do well in cup competitions, you have to win some tough games home and away. So we're really looking forward to the challenge of that, and we know that we have the capacity to get a good result.
Newcastle slipped up at the weekend in the FA Cup, but they've been particularly strong at St James's Park, yet to be beaten there. What's been the secret, do you think, to their season? What has made them so strong this season?
I think it's a combination of a number of things. I think that Eddie, obviously, in terms of his management and coaching, has done great with the players that he has. I think the investment and recruitment into the squad has been very, very good. So that's given them a real strong base to work from. And then the confidence and the support. You know, it's an amazing stadium to go and play in. The passion and the how fanatical the supporters are and how they back their team. So I think if you combine that with the team playing well and playing with intensity, then that makes it a difficult place to go. And it has always been that. You know, it's one of the few grounds I've always felt I've loved going to be involved in a game there, because it's a real, it feels like a real occasion when you go to St James's Park. And of course, now they're doing very well and been consistently playing well. Then of course it's I'm sure it's really hard to get a ticket there. So a mixture of everything really. But they've made a really, really good start to the league, and of course they'll be disappointed from the weekend, but they'll want to make a semi-final like we do.
What would reaching a semi-final mean to you, the players and the club, after the kind of season that you've had so far, which has had a lot of ups and downs?
Yeah, it'd be fantastic. I think that's the aim. You know, we go into these competitions with a view to get into the finals. So we've got to this far. We know it's a tough game away at Newcastle, but it will be a tough game for them as well. So we have to bring our best game there and deal with everything that gets thrown at us. But it's something that we've dealt with before and came through really well. So yeah, it'll be great. It's another step towards where we want to go, but let's take on the challenge.
He's under no illusions, obviously, Ewan, isn't he, Brendan Rodgers, that this will be a really tough game this evening and Leicester need to start quickly.
You know, it's not the first time Brendan's been to St James's Park. He knows what it's all about. He knows how passionate Newcastle fans are. And what makes it doubly difficult now is it's a club that's been united. It hasn't been a happy place over the last few years with the previous owner and one thing or another. But now the club's been taken over. Eddie Howe's come in. He's transformed the football club. They're flying high in the Premier League. I think the fans can relate to the players. They seem like a really down-to-earth bunch. They've got a great togetherness, a great team spirit. You know, very similar to when Leicester went on and to win the league back in 2016. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough task. It's going to be a tough ask. But one, Leicester are capable of going up there and getting a result. If Leicester can get back to the way they were playing with confidence, with momentum before the World Cup break, then they'll give anybody a go. They've got to put aside what's happened in the last few weeks in the Premier League with the 3 losses. They've got to forget about that, fully concentrate on this 90 minutes, maybe a little bit more. And if they can do that, if they get that little bit of luck that you always need in cup competitions to get through to a semi-final or a final, then they can carry on with this really good run that they've got up at St James's Park.
Right, prediction time then. I'll start with you, Ewan, and then finish with you, Matt. Will Leicester be in the League Cup semi-final by 10 o'clock tonight?
We spoke about it last night, and I said I wouldn't be surprised if it goes the same way as last time round. in 2019, draw at full time, draw extra time, and Leicester win on penalties.
Looking at me, Batesy, I've got to be honest, I'm thinking the same. If I'm going to look at a positive aspect from Leicester's point of view, I think it might be they've got to be in it for the long haul. It's going to be a tight affair, isn't it? Leicester, just match them, as Brendan has said there, get up for that challenge. Be ready for the challenge and then give themselves every chance. I don't see why not. So I'm going to go similar. Extra time, penalties, Leicester in the semis.
Hopefully so. Right, stay tuned after this short little break because, of course, we've got full commentary of whatever happens up at St James's Park this evening. Your commentary team is James Fielden and Jerry Taggart, so do stay with us. It's a big one. Cup quarter-final evening.
Because memories never fade, no matter how long. We'll still remember the moments of excitement and the impressions of Thailand. Amazing Thailand, now even more amazing.
Lamiat is the belief that perfection lies within the details, where the finest ingredients deserve the finest craftsmanship. In every pursuit of perfection, there is passion and perseverance, where attention to detail inspires a masterpiece that's balanced and in harmony. This is the Lamiat philosophy, brewed into every drop of Chang beer. This is the taste of Thai perfection. Chang beer. We brew friendship.
Hello, good evening everyone and welcome along to St James's Park up here in the northeast. We're on Tyneside for live coverage of this quarter-final tie in the Carabao Cup as Newcastle United host Leicester City, with the Foxes gunning for a place in the last four of the competition for the second time in 4 seasons. Another match day, another cup game as Leicester look to reach the semi-finals of the League Cup once again. Winners in 1964, 1997 and 2000. Another win in this trophy is due, and after the win at Gillingham on Saturday lunchtime, this will be an entirely different challenge against one of the best sides in the country this season. The Foxes were last in the semi-finals against Aston Villa 3 years ago and ended the losing run in Kent. Have travelled to the other end of the country for this tie, with the last 4 quarter-final ties going to penalties, something which could be on the agenda again here. It will not go to extra time in this one. Newcastle, one of the headlines at the weekend as they were dumped out of the FA Cup at League One side Gillingham and return to action here where they've lost just 1 of their last 20 games as the Magpies feel the good times again under their new ownership. Eddie Howe is the man in charge and has received plenty of plaudits this season for the way he set his side up, and it promises to be a special atmosphere here under the lights as they go in search of their first major trophy since 1969. They've already overcome Tranmere, Crystal Palace and AFC Bournemouth to reach this point, having not made the semis since 1976.
Number 19, Javier Manquillo.
I've got Jerry Taggart alongside me at the moment. Jerry, what kind of game, what kind of atmosphere have you experienced so far? It's a place that feels so positive at the moment, doesn't it, this stadium?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, obviously under no illusions that Leicester are going to be in for a tough night this evening. They haven't been beaten here at home all season, which is obviously a positive they'll bring into the game, even though they had that disappointing result at the weekend against Sheffield Wednesday. So Leicester just have to make sure that they stay in the game for the full 90 minutes and to give themselves the best opportunity. I know they've had a couple of draws here, Newcastle, in recent times, but they will go into this game feeling pretty confident. You know, they're full strength again tonight. They weren't full strength at the weekend against Wednesday. Came unstuck, and I think both managers, but especially Eddie Howe, will understand that this crowd and this town is crying out for a good cup run. It hasn't had one for a few years, so it's a massive, massive game for both clubs, you have to say, but in particular Newcastle United and Eddie Howe.
Yeah. And you say you're pretty confident, and I guess you're outnumbered at any away game, but especially here, Leicester have only brought several hundred fans with them. You know, this can be an intimidating stadium at the best of times, but they're not going to be heard here tonight, are they?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it doesn't really matter how many fans you'd have in the away fans. If you took your full allocation, it's very, very difficult to make yourselves heard. I've played here in a full stadium, and the fans are right up at the very top, at the back, stuck in the corner. And it's nigh on impossible to hear your fans, even when you're winning, never mind when it's a stalemate or when the Newcastle fans get behind their team. So I don't think that'll play a part. Their players will be used to the atmosphere here at St James's Park. It shouldn't really faze them.
Playlist has been banging here pre-match, but it's just such a colossal arena, isn't it? I mean, the far side is kind of smaller than the rest, but it's still probably, you know, about as tall as King Power on one side.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're surrounded here by this huge, huge arena. Football is just absolutely everything here.
Yeah, listen, it's one of the best stadiums in the country to come and play. Well, especially if you're obviously a Newcastle player and the town are doing well, then I suppose you are idolised by the people of this town. But even as an away player, even with the hostility that you're given, the names that you're calling, whatever, it's still a great place to come and play, especially when you win. You're away playing your cup, which Leicester have done in recent times, so they can't forget that.
And for you, memories of playing in this stadium from yesteryear?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, Leicester.
Any standout games?
Yeah, came here 1-2-0, and it was a rare game because Robbie Savage actually scored a goal. I think we beat them 2-0 in the league, 99-2000. And Alan Shearer was playing and managed to, with the help of my big friend Matthew in the studio there, we helped to keep him off the score sheet. So that was a bit of a bonus.
And we are just waiting for the two sides to head out here. Let's just take you through the team news ahead of kick-off here. Newcastle making 8 changes from their FA Cup game at the weekend, but in terms of their last league game, a 0-0 draw down at Arsenal, they are unchanged. Pope the goalkeeper, Trippier captain at right back, Cher, Botman and Byrne. 3 in midfield of Longstaff, Bruno Guimaraes and Willock, Almiron, Wilson and Joelinton across the front. This really is a sea of black and white around us here, with the flags being waved. They're trying to drum up the atmosphere, and of course for Newcastle this evening, Jerry, their last chance at a trophy this season.
Yeah, it's a massive game. You know, you can be forgiven as a manager, you know, changing your side up against lower league opposition. You know, at the end of the day, you have a squad and you have to utilise it. It's as simple as that. You've got millions of pounds of players sitting on the bench, and you have to be fair to them as well. So giving them game time against Sheffield United, you can't really, you know, point the finger at the manager for that. But they lost the game, and that's the underlying denomination that came out of that game. They lost that tie. So this, theoretically, even though they're in a good position in the league, who's to say what can happen in the run-in? But you know, you've got to look at this priority-wise, and realistically, you're saying this competition is their best chance of a trophy this season.
Every single person around us here has got either a flag or a scarf. They're whirling it around their heads, trying to really, really create some noise in here. That's the Newcastle side of things. For Leicester City this evening, Ward the goalkeeper, Castagna and Marty, Bass and Thomas the back four, and Didi and Tielemans partnering up again in midfield. Brighton, Ayosi Perez and Harvey Barnes are behind Patson Daka, who leads the line this evening. It's an interesting Newcastle side they're facing though, Jerry, because you know, it's not too different to the one that they've had really in recent years. Look, Botman's come in, they've really shored things up at the back under him. Bruno Guimaraes has come in, he's a fan's favourite here. Trippier, experience, know-how, quality on set plays and right back as well. Almiron suddenly seems to have found his feet. Wilson's been in and out, he's always been injured, but somehow as a collective they've really got it together under Eddie Howe.
Yeah, he's done a great job, you have to give Eddie Howe credit. You know, he's changed Almiron, right? You know, Almiron been there 3-4 years or something like that there, in and out of the team. Performance-wise, predominantly between a 5 and a 7, but at the minute he's producing 8 and 9s every week with his performances and his goal returns. And you talk about the rest of the players you brought in, good, solid, dependable Premier League players, and that's what Newcastle are. We spoke about it on Boxing Day. You know, they're big, they're strong, they're physical, they're reliable. They're not, you know, a Man City. They don't go and try and pass you off the pitch. But their style of football suits each and every player on the pitch. And of course, to have that little bit of sprinkling with Almiron coming in a really good form, and obviously Wilson up front, who, I mean, is a top player in the Premier League now for me. When he's fit, obviously.
There's one thing that so many Premier League managers speak about, and I'm pretty sure Brendan Rodgers said it to me after that game against Newcastle on Boxing Day, where they were 2-0 down after 7 minutes. They talk about attitude, and if you don't attack any game with attitude, then you're going to get ultimately nothing out of it unless you're extremely lucky, and they cannot afford to fall behind here, because this place is going to be an absolute wall of noise against them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, you look at the last 2 games at home, especially the game against Newcastle and the game against Fulham. Slow starts, conceded goals early in the game, and that's what's cost them. You know, you think keep Asher, when's the penny going to drop? And tonight it has to drop, like you say, because Newcastle will not change the tactics. They'll come out, they'll play a full press, they'll play in-your-face football, and they'll make it difficult for Leicester.
3-time League Cup winners Leicester City make the trip north, looking to reach the semi-finals of the trophy they last listed in 2000. Newcastle is a genuine tough place to come right now, with just 1 defeat here in their last 20 matches at St James's Park. The teams lining up in front of us here, in front of a sellout 52,000 crowd. This will be some noise, some atmosphere, and some game ahead of us this evening. Leicester City simply have to turn up. They've done everything to get this far. They cannot let it slip now, with a 2-legged semi-final and potentially a place at Wembley in the future weeks to come. Teams just going through the pre-match handshakes down in front of us here, and a huge roar as the Newcastle players take their places away to our right hand side in front of the Gallagher end, the traditional home end here at St James's. Both sides taking off their anthem jackets now, getting ready for the big one. Leicester in all blue this evening, Newcastle of course in the black and white stripes. The pitch in perfect nick for this one. The referee for the big game is Darren England. He's the man in the middle. No VAR in the Carabao Cup, so football as it used to be. And the Leicester players just getting some final fluids on board here, and we are just about set and ready to go. In terms of the Leicester team, Jerry Taggart, just about what we expected and hoped for, given the players at manager's disposal.
Yeah, I think, you know, listening to Matt in the pre-match show, that maybe there was a call that Kelechi would have got a start again tonight. You know, he's got the winning goal on Saturday. Obviously, that will fill him with confidence. But as he also said, where does Harvey Barnes fit into that equation? And he's been the man that's been in, you know, really good form in recent times. All right, again, the last couple of games he's just been off the board slightly, but you know, he's been in form for most of the season, Harvey Barnes, and I think Brendan's preferred system anyway is playing with that 3 up top. Kelechi, obviously along with Jamie, is somebody that Brendan can think about changing the formation tactically, if he needs to later on in the game, but we'll have to wait and see. And to be fair to Patson Daka, he's been in the team from the beginning of the season. He's been starting along with Jamie every other game.
Leicester's away record in the Premier League hasn't been great this season. There's 3 wins from 9 play. They've lost all of the other 6. They've taken actually a point more away from home than at home. But the one thing they've done is they've scored in every single away game. They're always good for a goal from somewhere.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They've got quality. We talk about Harvey Barnes, Patson Daka, but you've got Tielemans, top player. You've got Perez playing against his old team tonight. Can he get back on the score sheet? So yeah, there's quality throughout the team, and no surprise that they've scored in them games.
Here we go. Eddie White's black and white army reads the long banner pasted on the back of the stand on the far side. As we look across the field of play here, we're only about 10 rows up from pitch side. Yuri Tielemans gets us started straight away back to,